Have you ever hooked up, sex dating marriage, with a former school classmate 10 plus years after graduation? How did it work out? It happened at my wife's 20-year or 25-year high school reunion. Can't remember which. A couple that had never actually been a couple started to talk and then eventually got married. Then a few years later he beat her to death and drove to the police department to confess. He is currently in prison serving a life term. There is the Reddit I know and love. No, but my ex-wife did. That's why she is my ex. My lawyer told me you can't believe as many marriages end this way. I'm not surprised. Even on Reddit I read thread after thread about people creating false realities of the people they are interested in. People love making up fantasy versions of people and false realities of how things could be. If they could just. We could be so happy together. Nope. Pedestals are not reality, and the soon people stop making up crap in their head about other people, the happier they will be with their lives as they are. Or realistically working to improve their situation. Instead of waiting for fate to provide their fantasy life. People be holding candles for people in their past. Right and left. Yes. Hooked up with my middle school crush when I was about 27. She came to visit me from 5+ hours away for a Labor Day weekend. I couldn't stand her after about 2 hours. Edit to add. We were really close in 7th 8th grade. I believe I had a long-term position in the friend zone. I was an awkward kid. She was a cute redhead that every guy liked. To keep things weird, my mom and her mom ride horses at the same barn. I don't think either know. As I may die of my own personal cringe. I had sex with a girl I lost my virginity to 15 years later. It was a great experience. From the nostalgia aspect, she still looked great and everything was very familiar. However, I had gotten better in bed and she seemed to be worse. Just unrhythmic. My girlfriend and I went to high school together. We had one class together, band, and nothing else. I wasn't into anything female in high school and took no notice of her nerdiness. Flash forward 18 years later and via a mistext on Facebook we have been together for almost 2 years and she is literally me with a vagina. Ran into her on my way home from work one night. Made those be nice to catch up and have a drink promises that rarely get kept. We're now a few months away from our 5th wedding anniversary. I did the exact same thing. Ran into the hot girl I'd had a crush on from my senior year. Had a drink together. One thing led to another and the divorce papers should finally be arriving next month. And I can put 4 years of anxiety, depression and poverty behind me. Gonna buy a house next year. It's been 8 years since I graduated high school. I'm going out tonight with a girl I haven't seen since then. Will respond later with an update. I've been outside her place for 20 minutes now. She's not answering her phone. And when I buzzed her apartment, some old couple who barely speaks English let me in thinking I was the pizza guy or something. I think I'm being stood up. Open bracket. Edit. I left her a friendly voicemail. Gonna wait a few more minutes to see if she calls back. Not quite 10+ years after graduation, but my wife and I went to the same high school. We were not friends at all. We had classes together and could recognize each other. But never spoke outside the classroom, and even in the classroom it rarely happened. We just ran with different crowds. Her friends were mostly stoners and I was the shy, awkward, geeky, athletic guy. We both went off to separate colleges and both ended up transferring back to the local university. A few semesters later our only mutual friend convinced her to take a class that I was taking with him. She ended up being pretty much the only reason I went to class. 3 hours long night class. We had both just gotten out of long-term relationships, so nothing happened until a few months later. Had a really bad snowstorm and she lost power at her house. I invited her over since I still had power and she never left. Been married for 5 years now. Just because you've had her locked in your house for 5 years doesn't make you married. My parents ran into each other at a bar the night before their 10-year class reunion. Neither one had a date for the reunion, so they went together. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary yesterday. Well, I went to an all-boys school, so I'd have to make a pretty serious life change for that to happen. Mostly because those guys suck. Not me, but my ex-husband. He reconnected with an old college friend on Facebook and left me and our child 4 months later. 2 of my classmates hooked up about 15 years later. Got married. Had 1 child. Now divorced. I've never heard his side of things. I'd sure like to, but what I heard from her was after the baby was born he wouldn't help out with anything and just seemed more interested in tinkering in the garage on whatever gearhead project he had. A girl I was friends with and I came very close to hooking up several months ago, but 2 days before we were to finally see what could happen, her son had an accident and got 3rd-degree burn, so that pretty much put an end to what we had been wanting to try. We now are both seeing others. She did however send me a topless pic I'm not getting rid of. Gearhead? Do you have any idea how offensive that is? There are literally billions of gear people. That's like calling a Chinese person Asia face. Yes. We're married and have a daughter. House and pets together. We weren't even friends in high school, so it's kind of funny. Well, my father cheated on my mother with a girl he knew from high school. Long story short, my parents are divorced and she, the girl from high school, dead next to my father and died in the middle of the night. So in conclusion, God no. I don't even want to be friends with those losers. 10 or 20. Time flies. Year's reunion next year. We got married and are expecting our first child. After our divorce, my ex-wife tore through the pages of her middle school yearbook like a Category 5 hurricane. Which really doesn't get less creepy the more I think about it. Lol, yes. I hooked up with this girl who was still in high school when I was 19. We had fantastic sex and nothing else in common. Her parents hated my guts. So did her older sister. She'd never smoked weed before, but we smoked a shitload of weed together. This was in like 1992 or 1993. I found her on Facebook in like 2005 I think it was. We had fantastic sex and little else in common. She hadn't smoked weed in years and we smoked hella weed together. Her family still hated my guts. We didn't exactly break up, she just moved away after graduating med school. She's a nice girl. She married some lady where she was interning. They look really happy together. We don't talk to each other at all. Badly. Good sex though. Not 10 plus years but about 5 years after high school I hooked up with the it girl of my class. She was every guy's fantasy during school and was drop dead gorgeous. I was never popular and very average looking. She matured a lot after high school and really liked me for my personality. We dated for about 5 months and had some of the best conversations I've ever had. We also SZ'd. Was epic. I met up with an old school friend who was visiting my city for a sales conference. It was exactly what you'd expect. After a couple of drinks she expressed her remorse at not leaving our little hometown. At marrying the dude she did marry. Wishing she succeeded at her suicide attempts. By the end of drink number 3 she was offering herself to me. 2 more rounds led to us in her hotel room. Sounds like you took advantage of her being in a shitty emotional place.